you who don't know, as well as science, I love to bake. So to kick off 2018, I'm starting my series Bakeology. In these videos, I'll be showing you the science behind some tasty bakes, and hopefully showing you how to make them successfully too. So to kick off, let's start with bread. On paper, bread should be quite easy to make. It's only 5 ingredients after all. But there's a lot of things that can go wrong. If you know the science behind it though, and there's plenty of it, you should be able to whip up a tasty loaf in no time. Now, I've only ever made bread a few times, and one of them was when I was 10 and we went to the local Tesco bakery with our school, so I've not done it in a while. That being said, here we go, and fingers crossed.
To make bread, you'll need 500 grams of strong white flour, 30 grams of unsalted butter, 7 grams of fast-action yeast, 300 milliliters of cool water, a teaspoon of salt, and olive oil for greasing.
So first I'm going to put the dry ingredients in a bowl together. So that's the flour, the salt, and the yeast.
Yeast is one of the most important ingredients in leavened or risen bread. The yeast used in baking is from the yeast species Saccharomyces cerevisiae, which is also used in brewing beer. It converts the complex sugars found in the dough to carbon dioxide and ethanol, also known as the fermentation process. This carbon dioxide is what makes the dough rise and gives bread its fluffy texture. But don't worry, you can't get drunk off eating bread because the alcohol evaporates whilst the dough is cooking. Yeast is an organism, so you'd think drying it out would harm it, but the fast-action yeast granules that I'm using are actually dormant dehydrated yeast cells coated with a protective layer of yeast debris. This means when I add it to water and flour, it activates. But this is also why I need to put the salt in the opposite side of the bowl. Coming into contact with too much salt or sugar inactivates the yeast. Now that all my dry ingredients are in a bowl, I'll give them a mix, and then make a well in the centre of the bowl. I'll then add the butter around the well piece by piece, and once that's done, I'll add 3/4 of my water to the well. I'm now going to mix all this into a rough dough. I'm going to gently incorporate the flour into the middle and then turn the bowl so that all the flour and the water gets mixed up. Once all the water has been soaked up by the flour, I'll add the rest.
So my dough seems kind of wet at the moment, so I'm going to add a little bit more flour and see if it firms up. Now we've got a rough ball of dough. We're going to lightly oil the surface with our olive oil. We're going to tip our rough ball of dough out onto the surface, and we're going to start kneading to build up the gluten. So to knead the dough, all I'm going to do is press it with the palm of my hand to stretch it out, and then fold it back on itself, and just keep doing that.
So everyone's heard of gluten, but what is it? Gluten is formed from 2 proteins found in wheat flour, glutenin and gliadin. When you add water to the flour, these proteins bind together and create an elastic network of proteins called gluten. This stretchy protein network is the thing which traps gas bubbles from the fermentation process and makes the dough rise. When making your bread, you want a lot of gluten, so you can trap lots of gas and have a nice stretchy structure to your loaf. This is why you use strong white flour, as it has a high gluten content compared to plain or self-raising flour used in cakes. So to get our all-important gluten, we have to knead the dough to build up the protein network. Of course, you don't want to beat it up too much as a protein structure can break down. But if you're kneading by hand, chances are you'll get too tired before you actually damage the protein structure.
So I've been kneading the dough for about 15 minutes, and I've been using this scrapey thing to help me scrape it off the surface if it gets stuck, but you can use a knife or whatever you want.
You can see the dough is really smooth now, it's come together and it's really stretchy. Now I've done that, I'm going to roll it up into a ball, put it into a greased bowl, and cover it with some cling film.
So now we've got our kneaded dough covered up in our bowl, we're going to put our bowl in a nice warm place. I'm going to put mine next to the radiator, and we're going to leave it to prove.
Proving the dough with a first proof is basically giving the yeast the right temperature and time to carry out the bulk of the fermentation process. Fermentation uses enzymes to convert sugar into the carbon dioxide needed to make the dough rise, and the alcohol needed to give the bread a nice flavour. So leaving the dough in a warm place, around 27 degrees Celsius, helps the enzymes work at a good pace and produce gas. You don't want to bulk ferment the dough too fast, as you'll produce gas quicker than the gluten in the dough can reorganise itself to trap bubbles, so your structure will collapse. You'll also get less alcohol, meaning your bread will be less flavoursome.
So after leaving the dough to prove for about an hour and a half, this is what it looks like. So it's doubled in size, it's got loads of air bubbles, which you can kind of see at the bottom of the bowl too, and it's nice and fluffy. So now what we need to do is take it out the bowl, knock it back, and prove it for a second time before we bake it.
To knock back our dough, we're going to scoop it out of the bowl onto a lightly floured surface, and then gently press it and roll it into a ball to get all the big air bubbles that are trapped out of the dough. Now it's knocked back, we can shape it. So first of all, I'm going to press it out into a rectangle and then fold it in on itself to make a rough square. Once we've flipped our dough over, we can finally shape it into a round dome. And we can do this by tucking the bottoms of the dough under whilst we turn it.
So now we've shaped our dough into this round, lovely ball shape. We're going to put it on a baking tray covered in baking paper, or because I haven't got a baking tray, I'm going to use a pizza tray. And then we'll leave it to second proof for about an hour. So again, we want it to rise and double in size, and then we'll be ready to check if it's proved and then put it in the oven.
Second proving is important for a few reasons. By mixing up the dough after the first proof, you redistribute the yeast, giving it fresh food to work on. You also get a finer crumb, as the big air bubbles are knocked out and you get smaller bubbles throughout the dough. It's also good for letting the bread develop its flavour, but it's a fine balance that we need to strike. Underproving the dough means you get a springy, dense structure and a less flavoursome bread, whereas overproving runs the risk of the loaf collapsing during baking. So, to check your dough, you can press it with your finger. If it springs back straight away, it's underproved and needs more time. If it sinks and doesn't come back, it's overproved. But if it comes back slowly, you're ready to get it in the oven.
It's been an hour 15 and my dough has been on its second proof. So now we can test if it's overproved, hopefully not, underproved, hopefully not, or ready to go in the oven, hopefully yes. Here we go. It's kind of staying, it's coming back. It's coming back slowly, kind of staying in there. So we might have overproved it a bit maybe. But we'll see. We'll put it in the oven and see how it cooks. So whilst my dough was proving, I turned on my oven at 225 degrees Celsius and put a roasting tray in the bottom of it. So now what I'm going to do just before I put my dough in the oven is to put water in it, which will make steam. Now the steam is really important as it's a better conductor of heat than actual dough, so it helps the bread cook quicker, make it more moist, and it gives her a nice lighter crust.
The final thing to do before the dough goes into the oven is to slash it so it has room to expand whilst it cooks.
So the water is going to go in the roasting pan to make the steam, and then the dough is going to go in for about half an hour. Good luck. It's been 30 minutes cooking and now we're going to take our bread out the oven and hopefully check that it's cooked through. To check the bread is cooked through, we're going to do the knock test, and if it sounds hollow, nice and hollow, when we tap it, then it's cooked all the way through and we can let it cool down. Sounds hollow? Does that sound hollow? On second thoughts, we've decided it doesn't sound quite hollow enough, so we're going to put it back in for another 5-10 minutes, and hopefully it will sound more hollow when it comes out. Give it a tap. So it sounds hollow, and we're going to leave it to cool, and then we can slice it up and enjoy some delicious bread. Some good bread. It tastes like normal bread. It's great. Like shop bought bread, it just tastes exactly like that. So that has been my first video in the Bakeology series, how to make bread, and I think it went pretty successfully, so yay for us! If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and subscribe to my channel if you want to know more about Bakeology or just the general High-U videos that I do. If you've got any suggestions for other High-U videos, or if you want to see me make something in particular on the Bakeology series, leave your comments in the description down below and I'll see what I can do. And if you don't already, follow me on social media where you can see all the regular news of the day stories and also photos from my successful Bakeology videos in the future. So there'll be lots of yummy food to drool over while you're at work. But that's it. Thanks for watching. I hope it was super helpful and I'll see you in some of my future videos. But as always, thanks for watching and have a wonderful day.